Rolex is one of the most famous and expensive watch brands in the world. But the story started with a poor teenage boy. He lost his parents and someone stole his money. He had nothing, but he didn't give up. He left his country to start a new life. After many hard years, he followed his dream and started making watches. That was the beginning of Rolex. Now, let's dive into this amazing story together. Hans Wilsdorf was born in 1881 in Kulmbach, a town in northern Bavaria, Germany. He was the second of 3 children in a middle-class family. His grandparents were rich, and his parents owned a hardware store. Because of this, Hans had a happy and easy childhood. But when he was 12 years old, something very sad happened. Both of his parents died. Hans and his siblings became orphans. They went to live with their aunt and uncle, who sent them to a boarding school in Coburg. They hoped Hans would get a good education. However, Hans did not enjoy his time at school. To deal with the sadness, he focused on learning. He became very good at reading, writing, and speaking English, a skill that helped him a lot in the future. After finishing school, Hans left Germany when he was 19 and moved to La Chaux-de-Fonds in Switzerland. At that time, this city was a very important place for making watches. Hans got his first job there. First, he worked for a pearl company, and later, he joined a watch company called Kuno Korten. Even though Hans didn't know much about watches, he got the job because he could speak English well. His job was to write letters to customers in the British Empire and the United States. While working at Kuno Korten, Hans became very interested in how watches work. He was amazed by their small parts and how precise they were. This was the beginning of his love for watches. In 1905, Hans Wilsdorf started a watch company with his brother-in-law, Alfred Davis. This was the start of the Rolex story. The company started in England, but later moved to Switzerland. Hans had the ideas, and Alfred had the money. It was a good partnership. Hans was only 24 years old when they started. At first, they bought watch parts from other companies, put them together in England, and sold them to jewelry stores. After some success, they decided to make their own brand. In 1908, they registered the name Rolex. Hans wanted a short name that was easy to say in any language. Even though the company began in London, they soon opened an office in Switzerland. Hans started dreaming of a wristwatch that was not only beautiful, but also strong and accurate. At that time, most men still used pocket watches. Wristwatches were seen as weak and more for women. But Hans believed wristwatches could be made reliable and stylish. He worked hard to improve their accuracy, and in 1910, Rolex became the first wristwatch to get a Swiss certificate for high precision. Hans wanted his watches to be strong and respected around the world. He was not only good at watchmaking, he was also a great marketer. He knew how to show the public that Rolex watches were special. One of his smartest ideas came in 1926. That year, Rolex made the first waterproof watch case, called the Oyster. To prove it worked, Rolex gave a watch to Mercedes Gleitze, a British swimmer. She tried to swim across the English Channel. After more than 15 hours in cold water, she had to stop. But the Rolex on her wrist still worked perfectly. After that, Rolex put Oyster watches in fish tanks in store windows to show people they were waterproof. Hans kept connecting Rolex with brave and exciting adventures. In 1933, pilots who flew over Mount Everest wore Rolex watches. In 1953, Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay wore Rolex watches when they became the first people to reach the top of Mount Everest. In 1960, a special Rolex called the Deep Sea Special went to the deepest place in the ocean. Attached to a submarine named Trieste, the watch came back with no damage. Over the years, many different people started wearing Rolex watches. For example, Pope John Paul II, the 14th Dalai Lama, Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, James Bond, and Warren Buffett, they all wore Rolex. Some people may be surprised that even revolutionary leaders wore a luxury watch. But in the 1950s and 1960s, Rolex was more than just a luxury brand. It was known for being useful and strong. For example, in 1957, a Rolex Submariner cost only $180, about $1,500 in today's money. That same watch now costs over $10,000. So, what changed? In the 1970s and 1980s, something called the quartz crisis happened. In 1969, a Japanese company named Seiko made the first quartz watch. These watches were cheaper, more accurate, and easier to take care of. Many Swiss watch companies had a hard time. Rolex couldn't compete with quartz on price, so they focused on what made them special: quality, tradition, and style. Rolex spent a lot of money on its image. They put Rolex clocks in airports and supported elite sports like tennis, golf, sailing, and horse riding. They even sponsored the famous Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra. Rolex became a symbol of success and excellence. Hans Wilsdorf didn't live to see all of this. His wife died in 1945, and after that, he gave the company to the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation. Hans died in 1960 at the age of 79. He had no children. Today, Rolex is still owned by the foundation, and it is not a public company. Rolex now makes more than 20 watches every day and earns billions of dollars each year. Its success comes from new ideas, precision, and high standards. Hans Wilsdorf's story shows us that building a strong and honest reputation can create a powerful and lasting legacy. Want more inspiring business stories? Don't forget to check out the rest of our channel.